Imagine handing your bank $800 a year and getting nothing in return. That is what is quietly happening to millions of retirees with cash sitting still in a checking account. It is not a fee on any statement. It is the gap between what your money earns, almost nothing, and what it could earn just one step away. And with inflation near its highest point in 3 years, that still pile is not even holding steady. Every month it sits, it buys a little less than the month before. So how did a checking account, the most everyday thing you own, slowly become one of the most expensive places to keep your money? To answer that, you have to understand what a checking account was actually built to do. It was never made to grow your money, it was made to move it. To pay the light bill, the mortgage, the grocery tab, the doctor, the bank knows you need that money sitting there, ready, every single day. So it has almost no reason to pay you just for keeping it. What does that look like in real numbers? Right now, the national average interest rate on a checking account in this country, based on the same government agency that insures the banks, is 0.07%. Read that slowly. Not 7%, 0.07%. On $10,000, that works out to about $7 for the whole year. For the price of 1 cup of coffee, your bank gets to hold and use thousands of your dollars for 12 straight months. Now think about who keeps the most money in these accounts. It is not young people just starting out. The group sitting on the biggest average checking balance in the whole country is people between 65 and 74. On average, just over $24,000 parked in an account paying almost nothing. People who have done everything right, who saved for many years, are the ones leaving the most money on the table. And there is a good reason for it, one that has nothing to do with being careless. For most of your adult life, that habit cost you almost nothing. Money was cheap, interest rates everywhere sat near the floor, and a checking account and a savings account paid about the same tiny nothing. So it truly did not matter where your cash sat. $1 in checking and $1 in savings grew at the same pace, which is to say, they barely grew at all. For years, leaving money in checking was a harmless habit. That is the part that has changed. And you may never have been told. Why did it change? A few years ago, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates fast to fight rising prices. When that happens, the banks that actually want your money start paying you more to keep it with them. Suddenly, the safe, plain savings options that had paid almost nothing for more than 10 years were paying real interest again, the kind of rates your parents might remember. The catch is that big, regular banks did not have to follow along because they already had your money sitting comfortably in checking. So a wide gap opened up between what you could be earning and what you were actually earning, and that gap is the whole story of this video. What changed is this. Over the last few years, the safest and most boring savings options in America started paying real money again. A high-yield savings account today, fully insured, with no risk and no lockup, pays close to 4%. Some pay a little more than that. That is not a teaser rate or a trick to pull you in. It is simply the going rate at banks that actually compete for your money instead of counting on your loyalty and your habit. So let us put the two choices side by side, because this is where the cost stops being a fuzzy idea and becomes a real number. Take $20,000, a smart cushion for a retired couple, leave it in a checking account at 0.07%, and at the end of the year it has earned you $14. Move that exact same $20,000 into a high-yield savings account at 4%, and it earns about $800. Same money, same safety, same easy access. One choice pays for almost nothing. The other pays a real chunk of a property tax bill. And the part almost everyone misses is this. That $800 is not a one-time thing. It comes back every single year for doing absolutely nothing different. 10 years of leaving that money in checking is not $14 times 10. It is close to $8,000 in interest. You simply chose not to collect. And that is before you count the interest your interest would have earned along the way. $8,000. That is not a typo, and it is not a risky bet or a stock tip. It is the plain difference between two regular, insured bank accounts that sit right next to each other. Let me put that $800 another way, because the yearly number can feel far off. $800 a year is a little over $65 a month. Money landing in your account every month, month after month, for moving cash from one safe bank account to another. The top savings rates today pay around 6 times the national average. You are not chasing some fancy deal. You are simply refusing to leave 6 out of every $7 of interest behind. Let us make it bigger, because plenty of retirees keep more than $20,000 on hand. Say you have $50,000 sitting in checking, which is not rare after a home sale or once the savings of a lifetime finally land in one place. At the checking rate, that $50,000 earns you about $35 a year. At 4%, it earns about $2,000 a year. $2,000 every year for the same money with the same safety. That is a cruise. That is a year of a grandchild's lessons. That is real life, given away for the comfort of seeing a big number in the wrong account. But the interest you are missing is only half the story, because while that money sits still, something else is working against it from the other direction. Pay attention to this next part, because it explains why doing nothing is not actually the safe choice it feels like. Inflation. As of the latest report, prices in the United States are rising at 4.2% a year. That is the fastest pace in about 3 years. What that means in plain terms is that a dollar today buys less than a dollar bought last year. Your $20,000 still reads $20,000 on the statement. The number does not move. But what that money can actually buy, the groceries, the gas, the medicine, the heating bill, is shrinking a little every month while it sits. Picture it at the register instead of on the statement. A cart of groceries that cost you $100 last year costs about $104 this year. The tank of gas, the medicine refill, the electric bill, all of it has crept up. Your $20,000 has not grown a dime in checking, but the life it has to pay for has gotten more expensive. So the real value of that pile, what it can actually do for you, is slipping backward even though the number on the screen sits perfectly still. So put the two forces together and look at them honestly. Your checking account pays you almost nothing, while inflation slowly takes a little more than 4% of your buying power every year. The pile is not holding steady. It is losing ground. In a year like this one, leaving cash perfectly still is the same as walking slowly backward. A checking account stuffed with cash just sitting there feels like the most careful, sensible thing in the world. And in a year like this, it is one of the few places where playing it safe actually costs you the most. This hits retirees harder than anyone else for 3 quiet reasons. First, you are often living on a fixed income. When prices climb 4% and your money earns almost nothing, there is no raise coming to close that gap for you. The cushion you built has to do more of the work, which means where it sits matters more now, not less. Second, retirees tend to keep bigger balances on hand than younger people do. After a lifetime of saving, a big number in the account feels like proof that you are going to be okay. That feeling is deeply human and easy to understand. It is also the exact feeling your bank is quietly counting on. And third, there is a second line hiding inside that large balance, a point where your money stops being protected the way you believe it is. Everything feels fine right up until you cross it, and almost no one even knows it is there. We will come back to that line in a few minutes, because it is the part that surprises careful, sensible people the most. So the picture is clear. Idle cash in checking earns you nothing, and inflation chips away at it from the other side. Which brings us to the question this whole video has been circling. If a checking account is the wrong place for idle cash, then what is the right amount to keep in there, and what is the amount you should never let sit? The answer is far simpler than the banks make it sound. The people who do this work for a living have a clear rule, and it does not change much from one advisor to the next. Your checking account should hold about 1 to 2 months of your normal expenses. That is the whole rule. Enough to cover the mortgage or rent, the utility bills, the groceries, the insurance, the regular bills, plus a little breathing room on top so you are never anywhere near an overdraft. So if you and your spouse spend, say, $4,000 in a typical month, the right amount to keep in checking is somewhere around $4,000 to $8,000. Maybe a touch more if a fatter buffer helps you sleep at night. But everything above that, every dollar past 1 or 2 months of spending, is the amount you should never leave sitting in a checking account. And this is the part that catches good savers off guard. Many people have it exactly backward. They keep 1 or 2 months of spending and savings, almost as a side thought, and let the big pile sit in, checking where they can see it every time they log in. The large amount, the part that should be earning 4%, is the part they leave earning nothing. And the small working amount, the part that really needs to sit still, is the part they tuck away. The two accounts are doing each other's jobs. That extra money, the cash beyond 1 or 2 months of bills, is not money you are spending this week or this month. It is savings, wearing a checking account costume, and the moment you see it for what it really is, moving, it becomes the easiest money decision you will make all year. You are not investing. You are not taking on risk. You are simply walking your own money over to the account that pays you for keeping it there. Now, there is a feeling that fights against this, and it deserves an honest answer. A big balance in the account you check most often feels safe. You log in, you see a comfortable number, and something in you relaxes. After a lifetime of working and worrying, that feeling is earned, and there is nothing foolish about wanting it. But here is the gentle truth. That number does not become less safe when you move most of it into a savings account in your own name at the same time. It is still yours. It is still insured. It is still there on a screen whenever you want to look. The only thing that changes is that the larger share of it finally starts earning its keep. You get to keep the comfort and add the income. You do not have to trade one for the other. If this is helping you see your own accounts a little more clearly, take 1 second and subscribe. Every week, I break down the money decisions that shape a comfortable retirement in plain language, with no fancy words and nothing to sell you. Now, that second line I promised you, the one hiding inside a large balance. Your money in the bank is protected by the FDIC. That is the government insurance that has covered bank deposits since the 1930s, created after the bank runs of the Great Depression. And in all the years since, no one has ever lost a single penny of insured money. It is one of the truly great safety nets in American life, and you should feel good that it stands behind your accounts. But it has a limit, and that limit is stronger than it first looks. The FDIC covers $250,000 per person, per bank, for each type of account. Below that line, your money is fully protected. Above it, at a single bank, the extra dollars are not insured at all. Here is why that matters far more than it sounds. A lot of people simply assume that if their bank ever failed, the government would step in and make everyone whole, no matter the amount. For insured money, that is true. For money sitting above the line, it is not a promise. It becomes a claim. You stand in line as someone the bank owes money, and history says you might get back somewhere between 50 and 80 cents on the dollar through a process that can drag on for months or even years. And if you think a bank failing is something that only happened back in the Depression, look at what happened just a few years ago when 2 large American banks failed almost overnight. These were not tiny corner banks. They were big, modern banks that plenty of careful people trusted with everything they had. In those cases, the government stepped in and covered everyone, even the uninsured deposits. But that was a special emergency move made for 2 very large banks. It was never a promise, and no one should plan their life around it happening again. The people who slept best through those weeks were the ones whose money was already under the line or already spread across more than one bank. They never had to wonder. The good news is that the same rule that creates this ceiling also gives you the way around it. Because the coverage is counted for each type of account, a married couple can protect far more than the main number at a single bank. An account in your name covers $250,000. An account in your spouse's name covers another $250,000. A joint account in both of your names covers $500,000 more. Stack those account types, or simply spread the money across more than one bank, and a couple can keep a full $1 million fully insured without doing anything fancy or expensive. Having a lot of money is never the mistake. The mistake is letting it all pile up, uninsured, in one account, simply because a big balance felt safe. It is worth saying plainly why the system is built to let this happen. A big, idle checking balance is good for the bank and a slow drain on you. The bank takes the money you are not earning interest on and puts it to work, lending it out and earning money it never shares with you. None of that is shady. It is simply how banking works. But it does mean nobody at the bank has a reason to call you and tell you to move that extra money somewhere it would earn more. That phone call is never coming. The only person who will ever make that move is you. So you have found your extra money, the cash beyond 1 or 2 months of bills. Where should it actually go? You have more good, safe options today than you have had in 15 years, and not one of them means taking on real risk. The simplest is a high-yield savings account. It is still a bank account. It is still insured by the FDIC up to that same $250,000 limit. It is still your money there when you need it. The only real difference is the rate. Instead of 7/100ths of 1%, you earn close to 4. You can usually open one online in about 10 minutes, link it straight to your checking account, and move money back and forth with a single tap. Nothing is locked away, and nothing is at risk. If you would like something similar with a few checks attached, a money market account does much the same job, often at about the same rate, and it is insured the same way. For money you are very sure you will not need to touch for a few months, Treasury bills are worth knowing about. These are short-term loans to the United States government, about as safe as money gets, and right now they pay somewhere around 3.5% to 4%. They come with one quiet bonus that matters a lot in retirement. The interest you earn on them is free from state and local income tax. Depending on where you live, that can make a Treasury bill worth even more than the rate alone shows, because you keep more of what it pays. And for money you are willing to set aside for a fixed stretch of time, a certificate of deposit lets you lock a rate in place so it cannot drop while your money is parked. You give up a little freedom in exchange for a sure return. Now, I can almost hear the worry because it is the same one that keeps the money in checking in the first place. What if I need it fast? What about a medical bill, a car that breaks down, a roof that goes? This is the comfort that matters most. A high-yield savings account is not a lockbox. The money is not in the stock market, it cannot drop in value, and it is not trapped. When it is linked to your checking, a transfer usually lands within a day or two, and at many banks, the same day or the next morning. For the rare moment you need cash this very minute, that is exactly what your 1 to 2 months in checking is for. The two accounts work as a team, the bills account stays ready, the savings account stays earning. And anything you move from one to the other is only ever a few taps away. So let me walk you through exactly how to do this, because the idea is simple, but the first step is where people freeze. First, look back over the last couple of months and add up what you actually spend in a normal month. That is your number. Second, multiply it by 1 to 2, and that is the amount that stays in checking. Third, open a high-yield savings account, either at an online bank with a strong rate or at your own bank if it offers a good one. It takes about 10 minutes, and your other accounts are not touched. Fourth, link it to your checking and move the extra across. That is the whole project. One afternoon, start to finish, and it never has to be done again. You do not need all of these accounts at once. You can do the entire job with 2 simple buckets. One checking account holding 1 to 2 months of expenses for the bills. One high-yield savings account holding the rest, earning real interest, fully insured, sitting just one transfer away. That is the whole move. You do not need an advisor. You take on no risk, and nothing gets locked up beyond your reach. It is just your own money, finally working for you instead of sitting still. So the real question is not whether your money is safe in a checking account. For 1 or 2 months of expenses, a checking account is exactly where that money should be. The question worth asking is whether the rest of it is doing anything at all, or just quietly losing a little ground every month while it waits for a job you never gave it. You work too long and save too carefully to let the easiest dollars you will ever earn slip away for nothing. The amount you should never leave sitting in a checking account is simply the amount you are not about to spend. Find that number this week. Move it one step to the side into an account that pays you, and let your money finally start paying you back. If this gave you something useful, subscribe and stay with me. Next week, I will walk you through another quiet money decision that makes retirement a little more comfortable and a little safer. I will see you there.